Hi everybody. Hi Tamar. So we've been waiting to shoot this high society video, this specific high society video. Hi Tamar. טבק, בתיק. בכיס הקדמי אותו. We want to talk about our dear leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, and his many legal troubles. This guy is panicking. The noose is tightening around him. Very little have I read about that in non-Israeli press. Very little has been written about that in the non-Israeli press because I'm thinking it's super complex, and it's hard to explain everything like in an article. You need a documentary to do that. And I think it's a very interesting story, what's going on. So if you're following Israeli politics in any capacity, I think you're gonna like that. It's very interesting, a lot of twists and turns. Let's start with his first legal troubles with his wife about what's going on in their house in terms of workers and in terms of theft of public property. Bibi and his allegedly deranged wife, this has been confirmed by people who are in the party and not, and they're part of the Likud party. They say that she's deranged, and everybody knows she's deranged. So she has been throwing shoes and cursing and cussing and pushing and emotionally abusing workers for 20 years now. Her former workers, many of them had sued her, and she reached some kind of agreement. But then came this one guy, a hero, Meni Naftali, just a regular guy.
The janitor.
The janitor in their house. And he sued them, and they decided to double, triple, quadruple, fiftuple down. And he said, and they started to badmouth him in the media, blaming him for all kind of weird shit that didn't make any sense. Like they actually in their campaign, they said he is responsible for all the extra costs of ice cream and makeup and all of that because they believe they're queen and kings. So he decided, I'm going all the way, and he sued them for wrongful termination and for wrongful whatever, all kinds of shit. And he won. And then he decided that's not it. I'm gonna spill the beans about so much shit that I've seen about how they conduct themselves, that she's drunk all the time.
There's rumors that they have like this secret agreement locked in a safe somewhere, that she basically decides a lot of stuff in the government.
Right, even though she has no official capacity of any kind.
And there's no first lady in Israel.
Right. And she has no official position. It's not like Ivanka Trump, she's officially part of the White House. No, she's just like the wife.
So basically she's a psychopath, and he's totally devoted for her. I think, she's like threatening him that she will,
But it's more complicated than that. I mean, on the one hand, he's scared of her, but on the other hand, she keeps telling him, "You're an amazing world leader of historic proportions." So basically, she's kind of bipolaring him into feeling, at the same time, small, which he was the younger brother, and his father didn't appreciate him, and on the other hand, feeding his megalomania. So this is what we have to deal with. But some of you have Trump, so we have it better than you. Okay, so talk a little bit. So from that, then about the submarines.
The comparison is not to Trump. The comparison, I think, the best comparison to an American leader in the modern era is Nixon. Bibi is basically a successful Nixonian in retaining his regime, an unsuccessful Nixonian in having a strategy or some sort of Israel is going somewhere, which Nixon was, at least his foreign policy.
But internally both of them want to crush the old elites.
Yes, very paranoid, very hateful towards the old elites, the media, the
Jews. I'm thinking Bibi has like the rhetoric that he uses against left-wingers is strictly straight out of Mein Kampf.
Yeah, he hates liberal Jews.
More than, and his son hates them more than his son hates Nazis.
Yeah. His son absorbed this, education and hatefulness, and like a lot of Israelis, millennial, he took it to the next step and just became a racist and a conspiracy theorist.
Okay, so let's talk about the first big scandal that's related to the submarine.
So there are 4 scandals, 4 investigations, maybe a 5th on the way.
Submarine, and then 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, they
Yeah,
call it like
1,000.
case.
Yeah, 1,000. Case 1,000 is him receiving gifts
Right,
from rich people because
Right.
he's so cheap. He doesn't even carry a wallet.
right.
He never pays.
Doesn't have a credit card.
It's all.
He doesn't have a credit
No,
card.
he doesn't have it.
1,000, 2,000, and then there's also in the communication sector, because now a lot of really big honchos are going down in the biggest satellite
Right.
company and the biggest communication company, the people that are related to him.
And there's the submarines. The submarines.
So let's start with the submarines.
Which is maybe not only the worst of them all, but maybe the worst in Israel history.
It's borderline treasonous.
Yeah, it's borderline treasonous.
Maybe I'm,
Well,
I don't know, hyperboling a little
if
bit.
Bibi is the state, then no, it serves the state's interest. But
It's not legal if the prime minister does it.
yeah, basically,
Nixonian.
is what's the story says is Bibi was pushing and pressuring the entire defense apparatus of Israel, which is, a lot of it is supported by the United States, like $3 billion a year. That's like a fourth of or something like that, a fifth or something like that of the entire budget yearly. He pushed for acquisition of 3 new submarines. 3
Nuclear submarines,
nuclear submarines.
allegedly.
We already have 5.
We don't have 9?
No. We
Yeah,
have
5.
5 and 6 on the way.
Okay. And it'll still be there for a long time.
Yeah, remember Israel is like, we don't have an ocean. We just have the Mediterranean. And so
It's basically for a second strike to threaten everybody. If you
Yeah.
want to strike us, even if we die, we'll kill you.
yeah.
Okay.
So
why
under the
do
against the recommendation of almost everybody,
even his Minister of Defense.
yeah, even his own Minister of Defense in his own party, basically his second in command or one of
Yeah.
those, against all of the recommendation, he pushed and went all in to acquire 3 more submarines.
But why is that maybe illegal? Why is that allegedly illegal? Why investigate that? What were his motives?
Because his personal lawyer / cousin,
Mhm.
David Shimron,
Accidentally, coincidentally.
he's on a retainer with the German company that sold Israel the submarines.
And he made like 50 million shekels, I think, off of it, or something of that.
Just a signing bonus. We don't even know the rest. But there may be a lot of more than that.
But Bibi didn't know.
And Bibi
He
didn't know about it.
That his closest confidant and only family member that he trusts.
He practically fired the defense minister. He fired him, which is very, very rare in Israel. To be
In his
fired.
own party.
And he was a popular defense minister.
popular defense
Even in the center, they liked him.
Yeah.
The centrist. And he fired him allegedly because there's some soldier shot, whatever. No, the real reason was because he stood on his hind legs.
Right. Right, exactly.
Wanting to prevent that deal.
Right. And the replacement defense minister, Avigdor Lieberman, a swell guy, very corrupt in many ways. We can do a video about him, how he's been killing witnesses and stuff.
In a nutshell.
Allegedly.
Yeah. In a nutshell, he was also involved in many corruption cases. And in half of his party, or like 2/3 of his party, are now on the way to jail.
Right.
And
for different corruption
stuff.
scandals.
He got away because a lot of witnesses. The case was dragged in like a decade and more, and a lot of witnesses changed their mind and
or just like passed away.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
one of the most corrupted individuals. He's probably a Russian agent, I would say, even
Allegedly.
like yeah.
Okay, so basically the accusation is that Bibi compromised Israel's national security and long-term security for personal gain for his cousin. Yes, you there in the background.
One of the German shipyard is also partly I don't know.
Owned.
It's
מההתחלה.
also, the German shipyard that builds the submarines is partly owned by the Revolutionary Guards of Iran.
So they also made money out of this deal,
Yes.
the Revolutionary Guard,
Mhm.
and maybe they had access to these submarines. Maybe they can put some stuff in the submarines.
Mhm.
Maybe they can know what kind of submarines that we use.
Well, I'm sure they do.
They can
and
find the Achilles heel of the submarines. And why did he do all that?
Why? Because he's corrupt.
Yeah, and I'm sure that,
He's
like you
corrupt.
said, like he's the state, so like
Yeah.
we need submarines. That's fine. And if my cousin gets paid,
Yeah.
then that's fine. So this is actually a very serious accusation.
Very, very serious.
Maybe that's the scandal that's most scary for him.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, because it touches on the core of Israel, sense of like. First of all, it's very rare for a prime minister to go against his heads of security people. It's very rare.
Right.
When it's done, it's usually for good. It means the army it's too much sees nails and have a hammer, and the prime minister that comes from
Right.
or the minister that comes from the civilian
Right.
branch is like, no, wait, we have to a lot of stuff to sing. We need to cut here. But here it's the opposite. The army tells him we don't need. The army tells him we don't need new submarines. We don't need. We already have more than enough.
Right.
It's-
For 20 years.
For 20 years, it costs billions and billions of dollars
Mhm.
from the Israeli taxpayer. So going against them and acquiring it,
That's
and
suspicious.
then discovering that your part of your family is on a retainer,
Right.
and your person, it's not only like his distant cousin. It's like he's close, confident, he's conciliary. He sends this guy to
Yeah,
make
yeah, yeah,
negotiation, to form coalitions and stuff like that.
And also
to
represent him on TV.
and to speak for him on TV. It's like he's really like this. Everybody knows the connection.
Right. So he's saying I didn't know that he was working for them.
Yeah.
So the burden of proof is to find their
Yeah.
connections, and there is a state witness,
Mm-hmm.
Gano, right,
Ganor.
that has been implicating, and maybe it goes farther and wider than Bibi. Maybe
Yeah.
a lot more people got greased along the way to make this.
The Germans are very interested in that right now, so they have their own investigations.
Yeah, but I think they want the money.
Mm.
So I don't know if anything will come out of that. So basically, so if they can prove that he knew his brother was there, his cousin was there, and if they can prove that he acted in a deliberate way to
Mhm.
make it, then he's fucked.
He's fucked. Yeah, he's
Okay.
seriously fucked.
So that's one.
That's one.
Maybe that's 1,000. That the scandal, the nickname 1,000, case 1,000. That's the.
Submarine?
No. Okay, so-
The 1,000 is the gift.
Okay. So let's go to the gifts.
The
Okay.
gifts. Bibi is a cheap ass motherfucker.
He's one of the richest people in Israel.
Yeah, and
He's
it's
a multi-millionaire.
It's a well-known fact that since the beginning of his political career, he had a list of donors, a very famous list, with exactly the names of rich people and rich friends and how much money he can ask for them, and not only how much money and what will they pay for, my expenses his expenses as a prime minister.
Right, and also as a former prime minister, when he traveled the world, he got apartments, and his son got to
Yeah.
stay in rich people's apartments, and
Yeah.
and also there are interesting stories. Okay, so that kind of blew off, לא איך אומרים, איך כאילו שזה פרץ. So that
Broke.
case was brought into light because one of the people who gave him gifts is actually an American, Arnon Milchan. He's a cinema film producer,
Mhm.
not very well known, I'm guessing, outside
Yeah.
of here. He got mad at Bibi, and he said some really interesting trivia details that how they coerced him to buy gifts for Bibi's wife.
Yeah.
I told him, you should buy her, next time you see her, you should buy her this necklace and this chain, whatever, something like that.
He was financing her alcoholic problems, which
Right.
he has. She has. He
Right.
was financing pink champagnes for her.
Pink champagne. So when he went and said this costs like $5,000, no, I'll buy only the chain or the necklace or whatever. And when he gave that, I said, no, you forgot to buy the other part of the gift. So he was like really, really upset at that because he's a human being, and this is a very
Yeah, and he's also
awful way to treat people, just like feeling super entitled for everything.
Yeah, and he's a business guy, so
So what did he get in return? What did he get in return? Maybe he got it now. People are saying maybe he got in return. Maybe Bibi actively helped him get paid from his shares in Channel 10.
oh,
Okay, because there were two deals on the table, and only one of them had him getting his shares bought and getting money, and that was the deal that came through, or that was
Yeah.
the deal that Bibi pushed.
and he also financed Bibi's cigars. So not only Bibi smokes cigars, while Israel is second to last in the OECD Gini stats.
Right, after Mexico.
After Mexico, after the United States, I think. And the OECD, one of the last in inequality. His defense, his excuses was just gifts from friends, because we all know I have a lot of friends that finance my lifestyle.
You guys.
And when I have $40 million at the bank, so no.
Right, so
Something need to be explained, like how awful it is, even if it's not legal, even if it is legal or whatever, how awful it is. Because in Israel, the smoking cigar and like this facade of like I'm successful because I'm rich never really existed in Israel. It's kind of new.
yeah, it's
And-
anathema, I think, to like the Israeli story is like we are forgoing the old world, and now everybody
Yeah.
will look the same, and we dress this even like
Very socialistic.
right? Even like the most famous TV movie stars here, they look just like us. Like
Yeah.
in my daughter's kindergarten, one of the children there, one of the girls there, her dad is Lior Ashkenazi, a huge movie
Huge
star,
movie
huge
star,
movie
yeah.
star. He goes dressed like just like
Yeah.
any other guy, and is not
Our-
thinking of himself for.
Our politician used to dress with just a shirt, a button shirt, and that's it. No like fancy stuff,
Right. But we've got.
I mean, all the
we
pictures
become
of-
Americanized.
all the pictures of Ben Gurion with a tie is him visiting other countries.
Rather.
Yeah,
It's also hot here for a
Yeah.
three-piece suit.
yeah, but it's hot in Texas too. So
Okay, so it all depends. There were reports that this Aaron Milchan guy changed a little bit his story along the way, but everything is written down. He has signed statements saying that he got all this shit from Bibi and that it wasn't like in a friendly way. But it depends to see if he's willing to incriminate himself along the way while he's incriminating Bibi, because if he got something in return, then that's also a problem for him. But of course,
Yeah.
it's a bigger problem for Bibi.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's also very far along this investigation. At the end, we'll talk about where the investigations are going and how Bibi will maybe be able to thwart all these investigations. Okay, so let's go to 2000. I think this is the most interesting one. But let's start at the beginning. We don't want to spoil the ending. Okay, so Bibi, for him, he has said since he came back to power in 2009, he has said, I need a newspaper that will speak for me because it's a liberal left-wing biased
he
media.
said, "I need my own media."
I need my own
Yeah,
media.
that's what he said.
Right. So he got another American. Thank you, Americans. Sheldon Adelson, maybe you know him. He's one of the top donors for the Republican Party. Like I think he's the fourth or fifth richest person in the world.
He donated over $100 million to Romney campaign, and I don't know.
Also to
undisclosed.
Newt Gingrich.
To Newt
also.
Gingrich, $20 million,
I think
and
50, but
something like that.
And to Trump also.
Trump,
Donated to Trump
yeah.
also. So, and he has made his money by being a casino owner and allegedly a mobster and a pimp.
Yeah.
So that's very Jewish, very traditional, very
He has
conservative.
casinos in Macau, which is like an ex-territory in China. So everything's like like everything is allowed there.
Okay, so he got Sheldon Adelson to establish a new newspaper, Israel Today. At first, he started as an anti-corruption
Yes.
newspaper, because we had several corrupt prime ministers. This
Yeah.
is not a very well-developed country in that sense. In many other senses.
All the last
Last three.
four prime ministers, including Bibi, were under investigation.
Bibi, Barak, Sharon,
And
Olmert,
yeah.
and Bibi again.
Yeah.
So the last 5 prime ministers in office.
Yeah.
Okay, so they established this Israel Today, Israel Hayom. It's worse than Fox News. I don't know. It's
It is
kind of Fox News. It's like
even
Fox
their
News.
slogan is fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced.
Yeah.
Right.
No, really, that's their slogan on the page 2 is we are fair and balanced.
Right. He has a sworn affidavit saying I have no connection to that newspaper, and now actually there is another investigation, something ongoing with that. He has to release his phone calls. When did he call and talk to the editor-in-chief and to the publisher? If it's before big stories in the newspaper, and it's not a coincidence that he doesn't want to release that. He knows why.
It's against the law of campaign finance.
Right.
It's illegal financing with millions and hundreds of millions of dollars since it started.
Yeah,
more
if
than
it's a
$1 billion.
pamphlet.
Yeah, and
So his enemy
cannot spend this kind of money in Israel.
Right. So he had built this newspaper mainly in order to stop and to thwart whatever his biggest rival, Noni Moses, the head of the other newspaper, Yediot Achronot, the biggest newspaper in Israel at the time, that he says that's a liberal rag, but that paper actually supported several extreme right-wing politicians like Naftali Bennett and Avigdor Lieberman, whatever. So Noni Moses, he actually called this guy Voldemort. He said he's evil incarnate. He has made his last campaign against Noni Moses and his paper.
Yeah.
Saying he wants to destroy the right-wing government and make a putsch and stuff like that.
That he buys politicians, which he kind of is, you know.
Yeah, he's not a good guy at all. He has shady business dealings, and he uses his paper in order to advance his own business interests. So those two...
he played a big role in making Yair Lapid what he is today, which means like...
He's like a stupid Macron.
Yeah, a legitimate, contender for president. I would call him the centrist Trump.
He's like a former journalist, op-ed, whatever, like super mainstream guy, very not smart at all.
Yeah, very stupid.
So both of them are bad guys. There's no good guy in this story, right? So they're battling each other. And also, so while Bibi was making his campaign against Yediot Achronot during the last election, Yediot Achronot were unabashedly against Bibi in the most obvious way. And they overplayed their hand. Nobody believed them. Like suddenly they care about the financial situation in Israel. Because this paper has thwarted, I'm using for the third time this word, has thwarted our social protest here in 2011 by not covering them at all and has helped it die down. So he's a bad guy. And people were... So when Bibi won the last election, 2015, it was an incredible loss for Noni Moses. He used his own politicians in order to advance a bill against Israel Today in order to weaken it, so he so his paper will go back to being number one because Israel Today became number one.
Yeah, one thing about that.
Okay, and another thing about Israel Today, it's free. You just distribute it for free.
Free.
That's why it's a pamphlet.
Yeah, not only free, the business model of this paper is to lose money on purpose because they sell their ad space half price.
Right.
So it literally hurts journalism in Israel, not because it's only free, but because the business model is to lose money.
Yeah, so the other people will lose money as well because
Exactly.
Sheldon Adelson has a bigger wallet than everyone else.
And the law that they tried to pass was just, let's make it a paper when you have to pay 1 shekel.
Yeah,
and
that's like 25 cents.
Yeah, and Bibi,
dissolve the government because of that. Because
because
it has to pass like 3 times, so it passed once, even with members of his own coalition. So it wasn't a right-left wing thing.
No.
You had some left-wingers voting against the bill, Zahava Galon,
Yeah.
right, a really prominent left-winger. So this was this was the reason for the last election. This is like some real House of Cards shit right there.
It's not conspiracy. He admitted that.
Yes. Let's recap. Those are maybe the 2 biggest enemies in Israel. It's not ideology, because also it's worth mentioning that Israel Today is not a classic right-wing paper. It's a Bibi paper. If Bibi goes left, the paper goes
Yes.
left with him. If
Yeah.
Bibi goes right, the paper goes right
Yeah.
with him. So this is why other right-wingers, politicians, were not happy
Yeah.
with that paper at all.
It's very vicious to Naftali Bennett
Yes.
and Victor Lieberman, both.
And Ayelet Shaked.
And Ayelet Shaked.
Right.
All of them are right-winger,
Extremists.
extremist competitors of, Bibi for
Right.
the right-wing vote.
Right, and the way you can analyze the paper like you used to analyze like communist newspapers, like who appears in the picture, if they're smiling or not smiling,
Yeah.
what does that mean about if Bibi is happy with that guy or that guy.
Yeah.
And of course, Bibi is influenced directly. It has not been proven yet, but it will be proven. Everybody knows
Yeah.
that he's been involved, directly involved, because sometimes like they did a study. Like they had 40% of the time during the campaign, the main headline was a quote by Bibi. Like they use his talking points, the same exact talking points that he uses. You see that in the paper.
As headlines, and it's actually very interesting in terms of like how propaganda works in the 21st century, which is not the 20th century, because the 20th century was like, okay, if it comes from above, it's probably has some merit into it.
Right.
Now it's like the business model not only to weaken the other newspapers financially, but also to weaken them in terms of their credibility.
Like muddying the waters.
Exactly. So most Israel will say, yeah, Israel Today is bullshit, but also the other newspapers.
Right. Both sides do it.
Yeah, which
but
is very similar to what Putin is making. And as also, when I was a teacher, you can see the propaganda unfolds in what the students know and how they shape their narrative, because they go to school and on their way there's this guy handling free newspapers.
a poor guy usually.
Yeah, it's a free newspaper. They take one, not because they're interested in stuff like
Right.
that, because they're like
It's-
Crossroads
and it's
whatever.
free.
And it's free.
So they
take
scan
it.
through the headlines.
Yeah, and they scan through the headlines and what comes in, and they don't really, okay, this is a propaganda machine, this is serves BBD. No, it's like everything they know, even if they don't like Bibi, and most of my students really hated Bibi, from the right and from the left, mainly from the right even, I would say.
Okay. But it still worked.
Yeah, it still worked because their narrative was shaped by the headlines.
So
You
let's
know?
talk about the headlines. We had a personal experience with that, remember? I
Yeah.
wrote an op-ed
Mhm.
they asked me to write something. They had like a pro and con, something like social, like cost of living stuff. So we wrote it together to make it the best piece that it can be. And then they put the headline that they put on the article, on the opinion piece, was directly undermining everything that I said. It's as if it was a YouTube comment against the piece. So once you read it, you start off with the headline that makes me look like an asshole. And then when you read it, like I remember my brother told me, I read it and I didn't really understand what you were trying to say. Like, it's like in your brain, you
Yeah.
read this and it doesn't match.
Yeah.
So they just undermine in their own paper.
And
what
your
the-
brother is equipped with, he knows what Israel Today is, and
Right.
he knows your position. He's
Right.
equipped. So imagine someone who is not equipped
Right.
with dissecting and the
Right, and why
headlines.
would you even read a piece that had a headline saying that the most important thing is like the price of the dairy? It was something of the sort. It was like the whole premise was the issue of cost of dairy, whatever, איך אומרים, דני כזה, נכון, מילקי וזה.
pudding?
like dairy puddings, whatever, is not important. This is just a symbol, and we shouldn't focus on that. And the headline was, the dairy pudding cost is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I want to whine about the cost of dairy. What the fuck? Okay.
During the elections, the last elections too, there was this movement, NGO movement, that we were involved in too. What's her name?
V something.
V for victory, something like that.
V and a number.
Yeah, V15.
V15, yeah,
Yeah.
it was in the
Victory
2015.
2015.
Okay.
We volunteered for that.
Yeah.
We still, George Soros, we're still waiting for the paycheck.
We
George.
knocked on doors here in the
Yeah.
neighborhood in order to have like more people voting.
Yeah, and
It didn't work.
it didn't work. No, it raised the voting.
No, what we didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
There was the same number of people voting here than in past elections.
Anyway, when this movement,
Came to
went
light.
public, the Israel Today, the Likud said it's foreign government money, and we have proof of that. And they made like this huge
Press conference.
cacophony or whatever of a press conference, and for at least a week or two or something like that, all the headlines of Israel Today were quotes from this committee. And later it was proved there's nothing to it, so they just published like, okay, there's nothing to it, like in the aspect, but it worked.
Right. Worked.
Because in the minds of most people in Israel, V15 was foreign government money.
תגיד foreign money, כי אחר כך אנחנו נדבר על שלדון אדלסון.
Was because in the heads of most people, V15 and the new Israeli fund and all is foreign money
Trying to influence
elections with the ambition to destroy Israel. Why? Because foreign is a dog whistle for anti-Semitic, basically.
So is Sheldon Adelson Israeli?
No, he doesn't even know Hebrew, as far as I know. He never spoke in Hebrew. Maybe
And he says that Israel doesn't have to be a democracy. He has said that on record.
And he's foreign.
He's our overlord,
basically.
Okay, so this was all the setup. These two arch rivals, Nemesi, Bibi and Noni Moses, fighting an all-out war, specifically during the last election. And then, at the end of 2016, there have been some reports that there's a legal scandal with Bibi, and he has been working with a very famous businessman, doing some shady back and forth and quid pro quo. And people were starting to speculate, who is this other businessman that Bibi has been cooperating with behind the scenes, quid pro quo? And I remember I was in New York. I opened my Haaretz app, and it said, the businessman that Bibi has been cooperating with in a quid pro quo was Noni Moses.
Yeah.
So all this story,
the publisher of
Yediot Achronot. So all this story about them, Voldemort. So this is Voldemort, and both of them. Bibi is the most horrible thing in the world. Noni Moses says. Bibi says Noni Moses is the most horrible thing in the world. Apparently, they have been meeting in secret, behind the scenes, before the election, talking on the phone, trying to cut a deal. How did the people and the police learn that this has been going on? They were just the two of them there, right?
Bibi recorded it and gave it to his confidant, and they from
his chief of staff,
and by a random raid on his house
because he was under arrest for some other shady deal.
And they raided his house and found these tapes and
of them talking,
and the tapes them talking is like, I need you to fire this guy. I need to fire some guy.
Right.
Blah, blah,
hire
blah.
this guy.
Yeah. Show me that you're Bibi selling Nodi. Show me that make a step towards me.
Yes.
Wash my back here, and then I'll talk to the Gingy, to the Reddit guy, which is Sheldon Adelson, and maybe we'll cancel the weekend edition.
Right. Because the weekend edition, that's like the big money for Yediot Achronot. And also, Noni Moses was telling him, this is all on tape. He was telling him, if you ask me, you can be prime minister for life. I will make you prime minister for life. Just cancel that other paper that you have sworn that you have no relations with. Cancel their weekend edition so we can make more money and we can become number one. And he told him on tape, yes, I will do it. I talked to him. So his line of defense is, I was only playing. I didn't intend to follow through on my promises. I was just talking. For what reason and why? And if you were trying to entrap him, why didn't you publish it for everyone to see? You see this publisher? He will do anything for money or whatever to discredit him. No, and there is evidence that he actually, and Sheldon Adelson.
Sorry.
So, and apparently Sheldon Adelson didn't know that they met. And there were reports that he was upset. And there is a report that he went to the police and sworn testimony said that Bibi indeed approached him in order to cancel the weekend edition, brought it up, which shows intent. And unless Sheldon Adelson...
And prequel quo.
That's the quo, whatever. And unless Sheldon Adelson in court will say, no, I lied before... How can he get away from that jam? You have tapes of him promising to do something, and then the other guy mentioned says he approached me in order to do that. How can you say that you just talked?
And Pravda logics, dissecting what the leader of...
The leader is Shadon Ellison.
Yeah, the leader in this case is Shadon Ellison. Suddenly, there was a short period, and Bibi got some negative headlines in Israel today. Yeah,
there was one that says disgrace about his decision, whatever security decision. We have never seen anything like that. So people have been speculating that maybe Shadon Ellison is moving towards Naftali Bennett, who suddenly got more positive coverage. This is some horrible shit. Shit. Yeah. But so those tapes have not been published, but all the content has been leaked.
Yeah.
And you remember it was like a drip, like every day you heard something else, and you were like, by reading it, it seems like two mobsters making a deal. This is horrible.
Yeah.
So let's hope this gets published. I think if people will remember what happened with the former prime minister, the previous prime minister, Olmert. He had a number 2, Shula Zaken, whatever his confidant, and she recorded him promising her that if she would not testify against him, then she will get money from this and that.
Yeah.
And the moment that you heard them talking, there's no going back from that.
Yeah.
No going back from that.
Yeah.
Okay, so briefly, Case 3000. The two of the 3 biggest communications companies in Israel, their CEOs and chairmen are either in jail or are under investigation of stuff because they're like inflated the price of their shares in order to sell it, blah 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 blah. And one of the owners of Bezek, the big one of the 2 big companies, he also owns the biggest website, Walla,
which was very friendly to Bibi for a while.
Very friendly to Bibi and his wife. You see, like very like they would post articles about his wife just doing charity work and had like the most flattering pictures and all that shit. And if you would write something against Bibi, then the CEO would say you have to remove that and all that shit. There was like a study made about it. So now there are allegations that Bibi worked in order to help his friend in return for the positive coverage. And his friend now is going to lose everything. Alovich, this owner, is going to lose everything. He's going to jail, or is going to lose almost all his money. He's lost his shares and everything. So,
and Walla is not that friendly to Bibi anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Another one?
Ma.
לא היה עוד אחד? No? That's it?
Well,
That's it?
there is another case 5000, they say.
רגע, we didn't say. His chief of staff who recorded his conversation with Noni Moses and all that, he's become a state's witness now.
State's witness.
He's like maybe his cousin / lawyer is his closest confidant. This was his number 2.
Yeah.
They have been together for a long time, and also we haven't mentioned that, but a lot of of Bibi's entourage is either in jail or going to jail for all kinds of shenanigans. So this guy who had the recordings, who knows everything, he has the list of the donors with the money and all that. He's become now a state's witness, a state's witness. So with all this evidence, I'm sure that Bibi will be going to jail very, very soon. I'm sure he'll be indicted tomorrow. Why hasn't he been indicted, Itamar?
Because this is not the same Israel that was 8 years ago.
But okay, just to contrast, let's talk about Rabin and why. Let's talk about Rabin and why he resigned in the 1970s. What were the incredible corruption charges?
Yeah, in 1977. It was discovered that his wife, from the time he was ambassador to the U.S., his wife held a foreign bank account with dollars inside.
So she probably had like $1 million over there.
No, she had a few, $20 or something like that, something ridiculous.
But it was illegal back then.
Yeah, but it was illegal, and it was her. But Rabin said, "No, her is me. I take responsibility.
$20,
and I resign."
So is Bibi resigning?
No.
He's going to war.
But last Prime Minister Olmert, for less than that, and less than what they know at the time, what we know now about Bibi, he resigned.
Right.
Yes.
And
And
he-
Bibi was one of the most vocal voices.
Right.
He should resign. It's
Right.
unbelievable. He's
Right.
under investigations. And
Right,
blah, blah,
right,
blah,
right, right. And he's now in jail. Or it's been released recently.
Yeah, it's been released, but it was
released.
like 18 months in jail. And
Right. Our former prime minister. Okay, but so Bibi, he's a smart guy. So he appointed his confidant, and what was his position? Whatever, he had a government position. He appointed him to be the attorney general who
he
decides.
was secretary of the government.
He was secretary of government. So now he's the attorney general, and he's the one that will decide if Bibi gets indicted. And was he part of any of the shenanigans? We haven't even talked about all the thing with the natural gas. That's a big scandal.
Case 5,000, yeah.
And he's also involved there, the AG. So he has been dragging his legs for 18 months now with some of the investigations. And why is it? And it took so long to talk to Bibi and to his cousin, David Shamron. They had time to get the story straight like a million
Yeah.
times. And he's been dragging his feet on the one hand. On the other hand, he didn't stop. He didn't put a lid on the investigation. So it's still ongoing. So maybe he's also playing both sides to see who's winning.
Yeah.
He's playing it very, very conservatively,
Yeah.
this game. And also the chief of police.
Mm-hmm.
He appointed the chief of police and told him,
It's a personal appointment.
personal appointment, if you do a good job, I'll make you afterwards head of the Shin Bet,
Yeah.
like the FBI,
Yeah.
whatever. So he has also a vested interest for Bibi to remain in power. So what do you think? Bold prediction. Okay. Bibi now is very tense.
Yeah.
He's been campaigning everywhere against this.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows this is. It brings up this all the time.
He's basically equating and defining the state powers, i.e. the law, as, doing everything they can to topple him,
Right.
to make a coup. I don't know. Really, I don't know. If it was any other country, Western country, it was clear.
He would have resigned.
He would have resigned long time ago, even for different stuff. Or, it was very clear that he's going to be indicted and then thrown to jail, for sure. But because it's Israel, it's because,
And because he removed those checks and balances.
yeah.
Also in the
then-
natural gas thing, he's very good at that.
I don't know. My sense is going down, but the cost would be horrible for Israel.
Right, because he will not go down easily,
No.
to say the least. To say the least.
No.
רגע, מה רציתי להגיד על זה? There is speculation that if he knows that an indictment is coming, he will call for an election,
Yeah.
and then he will be re-elected,
Mm-hmm.
and then he will be able to say what he's saying now, but in a more forceful and
Yeah.
real way. You cannot replace a prime minister without the people. The people
Yeah.
have chosen me. I have the mandate of the people. They know everything about that, and they think it's bullshit. They still want me. How can you topple me? Like the jury, the third branch is trying, together with the media, is trying to topple me.
Yeah.
And like a putsch. So
The third estate, yeah.
the third estate. So let's hope. I don't know. And something important: the moment that he falls, if he falls, the moment that he falls, the entire trajectory of the history of the state of Israel will change. The moment that he falls, because no one will be able to fill his vacuum. There's no one else quite like him.
No, nobody will be able to fill his vacuum. I don't know about the trajectory, though.
Okay, we might be too far
Yeah.
down the slope,
Yeah.
but no one will be able to create so much hate without any political repercussions. Nobody will be able to alienate so many of his allies, political allies, without political repercussions. And I'm not sure that his replacement will have a better chance at getting the biggest number of seats than the head of Labour. I don't know. It's 50-50, 60-40. I don't know. It could go either way. It could go either way.
Yeah, maybe. I'm pessimistic.
You're pessimistic.
Yeah. That's when I get the fuck out of here.
Save me a seat.
That's just...
Okay. So we can if you have questions, maybe we glossed over some stuff or didn't explain it very well, so you can we can continue the conversation in the comments on the Patreon page. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being patrons.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time. Bye,
Next month.
everybody.
Bye.
Next month.